Okay, yes, this is the sound of the Emulator II V. Hello everybody, it's Jacob here. You're watching Arpeggiator TV live in 2021. Happy New Year to all of you. I'm super excited to have you here again, and today we are again having another live stream on one of the latest V Collection 8 instruments, Emulator II V, which, as you know, was released a few weeks ago alongside other instruments such as June 6V, Jupiter 6V, Jupiter 8V, Analog Lab 5, as well as Stage Lab 73 V2, Stage 73 V2. So today we are having a closer look at Emulator II V, which, as you probably know, was one of the first important big sampling machines in the 80s that changed the music industry forever, and in particular changed the way that people were making music by introducing a sampling as a technique and making it very widespread along producers. And today we'll show you how our own software recreation is super close to it, matches it totally in sound, and goes even beyond with our modern enhancements. So the plan today is to spend 1 hour together examining this instrument and this product. And in that time, I'll show you all of its best features. We are going to do an overview of the front panel, the advanced panel. You will learn about how the instrument works, see how it sounds. And after this, we will also examine a few tips and tricks, and I'll show you how to create cool sounds that are evolving and ever-changing with the techniques that are available with this instrument. And of course, at the end, we will have a Q&A session where I will try to answer some of the questions, so you can ask them now in the chat, and my colleagues will follow them to me. Welcome again, everyone. We are going live with Emulator II V live workshop. Okay, so let's start by playing a few sounds that are super familiar to everyone and trigger some sort of a nostalgia when it comes to music that we were all listening or listen that was made back in the 80s and 90s. So let's start with this sound. So lush, it's super smooth. I don't think there's a lot of samples that are so popular and familiar to everyone and give everyone the same sort of feeling of just wanting to use it in every track. You would never think that a vocal could be so interesting, but yeah. Instant new age type of vibe. So you could find this sound all over the charts back in the 80s and 90s, no matter whether it was deep house, Chicago house, pop, rock, or new age ambient music. So yeah, if you want to try to match those styles, this is the sound that you can easily find on Emulator II V. But of course, there's a lot of different type of sounds that we carefully transferred from the original instruments to our own Emulator II V. And let me just show you a few of those now, and then we'll start with the overview, and you'll see what are the features, how the instrument is created, and what is its architecture. So the other sound that was super important and very familiar for this product was the Marcato strings. So let's listen. Why don't we add some effects, maybe a little bit of delay and reverb to make it a bit more lush. sounding super sweet. We can also maybe increase the release time a little bit to make it even more lush, like this. Classic, instant classic, sounding super cool, super original, and instantly giving us the nostalgic vibe. So what else? What else is here that was present on the original instrument that we might want to be excited with? Of course, we couldn't talk about this instrument without the classic It's here, sounding super real, super original and authentic, the Loon Garden sound, but we are also presented with different types of sounds. The piano, why don't we add some effects to it? Yeah, sounding super authentic and original. Just like the original. Alright, dirty FM piano. Dreammaker. Of course, there are classics like marimba here as well. Toe, low-fi keys. Super sound. Arco strings as well. Yeah, very authentic, great sounding samples and presets. These are obviously carefully modeled thanks to our software folks who are the best at what they do, and they always make sure that the instruments that we put out sound as authentic as possible. And it's no different with this instrument. We'll be showing you different types of sounds along the way. For now, I think this gives you an overall impression of the classic sounds that are embedded here. As you can see, the browser is completely changed in comparison to the previous V Collection as well. All the instruments that are new in V Collection 8 have this structure, which is sort of based on the new analog lab browsing design. And yeah, I'll show you quickly the way it works. So you have your library, but you also have an explore section where you can browse the presets by types, styles, and banks. So for example, if you go to the factory, you'll find a lot of the sounds that were on the original emulator. You also have your own library where you can find the sounds that you have recently played. You also have the sounds that you liked. So to like a sound, simply press the sound and yeah, the percussion is here as well. So there's everything that you need to produce music with just this instrument. And then, yeah, if you've selected it, then simply press the heart icon and then there you go. It's going to be in the liked category. You can also save your presets and then create your banks. So yeah, that's the basic idea behind it. And I said that there is also a lot of drums and percussive sounds, and that's because the emulator allows you to make music with it as the only device, because it has those different type of sounds. Unlike the synthesizer, where you are limited into what you can produce, with emulator you can do everything, you can build the whole track. And I think that was the reason on why it became so popular, because it allowed people to make music with just this one device. And we are also going to show you a track that I have produced, so you could see that you can just use this as the only instrument for many different purposes and sounds. But that will come later on at the end of the presentation. So now let's focus on the instrument itself. As you can hear, the front panel is looking beautiful, a great design, and it's obviously based on the classic structure of the original hardware. So we have a master control, you have a filter section with the envelope, you have an LFO, VCA with the volume envelope, arpeggiator and effects. So obviously not all of these functions are the same as on the original hardware. We have added some of these here to make it modern and go beyond the classic sound. So I'll give you a quick rundown of that, and then we'll explore the advanced panel, which is called the screen view, where you can actually design and control various parameters of each of the sound. And that's because Emulator V gives you 8 voices, which stands for sample slots. Basically, you have 8 samples that you can use and build your sound that consists of 8 of those sounds. And each sound comes with its own filter, its own LFO, its own VCA, its own sample management and editing tools, and even effects per slot. And you can of course spread them out throughout the keyboard and create multi-timbral structures that you can then play across the keyboard. So to start off, let's just basically maybe pick a sound that's going to be great for the presentation, and why don't we go for the Mercado strings again. Cool, perfect. I'm going to add some effects on top of that for extra spiciness and extend the decay and release times. What does it remind you of? There was a famous orbital track that was remixed by CJ Bolland. The one of you who will remember the name, please share it in the comments. There is a famous track that utilizes that type of sound with the pitch bend manipulation. CJ Bolland and Orbital. That's the hint. All right, so let's start with the explanation of the structure of the front panel. So basically, the master control consists of the volume, master volume level, global tuning in hertz, as well as the transpose in semitones. And the next section here is called the voice link, and it defines the basic principle of this instrument, because basically all the controls that you see on the front panel, they are the global representative controls of all the controls of the individual sample slots that are in the screen view. So basically, if there is a filter frequency parameter for each of the 8 sample slots, you can link that parameter for all the 8 sample slots and therefore make it available to be controlled by the front panel frequency control. So maybe we can listen to the filter. which is the carefully emulated and modeled analog filter based on the original Emulator II filter, which was a big part of the sound and the heart of the instrument. And as you can hear, as I am decreasing the control, all the sound is getting duller and it closes the high frequencies. And that's because every frequency control, the frequency control for every sound, every voice out of the 8 available is linked here. And that is the basic and most important principle of this instrument. So that needs to be explained at the beginning so you understand the flow and the way that it works. You can obviously unlink the instrument, the particular sample or voice from the chain, thus making it not available for the global parameters to control, and therefore you are gaining an option to define it separately from all the other sounds. I'll cover this in detail later on once we will dive deep into the screen sound. But basically you can also unlink those sounds to here, unlink them here as well. So if, for example, I am unassigning the first 3, it means that all the global parameters are controlling just the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th sample slot. So that's why when I close the filter you still hear a lot of high frequencies, because these are the frequencies coming out of the first 3. These are the frequencies that are still being played from the first 3 sounds. So that is the basic voice link structure for this product. So yeah, the filter. Let's listen again how creamy it sounds. Super creamy and super soft sounding filter, and below there is a filter envelope and a few other controls that define the behavior of the filter. So the envelope amount control defines how much of the envelope is affecting and modulating the filter. So to give you an idea, we can change the settings, like for example increasing the attack time, closing the filter a bit, increasing the envelope. And therefore modulate the filter that way. Keyboard control, keyboard amount control basically defines the influences the higher notes and opens them up. While keeping the lower octaves closed. The LFO control allows you to implement and affect the filter with the LFO, like this. And above it, as you can see, you have a dedicated LFO section where you can define the settings of it. So you can make it slower or faster. And these controls also are defined in the voice link group. So the rate of the LFO is changing the rate of the LFO for every sound out of 8 slots that are available. You can introduce a delay on the LFO, so it means that before the LFO will affect the filter, it's going to have a little delay. which is great for making evolving sounds. And on top of that, you can also introduce a little vibrato. Maybe without the LFO. For the extra pitch modulation spiciness. And below the LFO, there's also in the filter section there's also a velocity modulation control. And then below the LFO there is a voltage control amplifier, which comes with the VCA envelope, velocity modulation control and LFO modulation control as well. So here we can define the settings for the volume envelope, making the attack slower, for example, and manipulating the decay stage and decay, sustain and release stages. And these obviously are connected to the individual envelope settings for all of the 8 sounds. Okay, and then later on there is an arpeggiator, and for this sound maybe we can set the marimba on to make it, or maybe the piano would be a better one, the grand piano maybe. Alright, so let's turn it on and... Oops, not the sound that I wanted. Grand piano, yep. Alright. Turning the arpeggiator on. Alright, so there are a few options here that allow us to manipulate the behavior of the arpeggiator. The first one is the rate control, which basically defines the speed of the arpeggiator. Let's add some effects maybe for better. Alright, so yeah, these were this is the 16th bar speed clocked to the master tempo. You can also unsync it and make it work in hertz. You can also define the pattern direction, so there are a few available. The first one is the playback order, which means that it will play back the notes in the same order as you trigger them. Up, down as well, up and down exclusive. And the inclusive up and down as well. And random as well. You can also define the octave range. So the pattern will go beyond the octave that you are triggering, and it can be as much as 5 octaves. And the last section is the effect section. So here you have access to 3 master effects that are also available in the effects tab in the screen view, where you can define their settings and manipulate the various controls. And here you can simply activate them, pick one of the effects that are available and use 3 at once. And basically here you get the modulation, spatial and dynamic effects that give you everything that you need in terms of processing. So here I have chorus. Let's maybe go back to a different sound. Let's maybe pick the voices for this occasion. adding chorus now. And then we can increase the delay as well. And reverb, which is set by default like this. But the other effects are, you know, stereo panning, parametric EQ, multi-mode filter, bit crusher, compressor, overdrive, phaser, flanger, chorus. So there's everything that you need basically to spice up the sound as you like, as you want it. Okay, so that's the basic front panel structure. You also get a pitch bend and the modulation wheel as well. So now, after this brief introduction, let's move on to the screen view, which is the area where you can manipulate every sample and change it the way you want it. So let's start maybe with this voice sound and decrease the effects to show you the structure of this screen view. Okay, so starting off, there are 8 slots that you can fill with your samples. So the slots are visible here in the on the left side of the panel. To access particular sound, simply click on the tab here. Usually the sound can consist of many of those, a final sound can consist of many of the samples that you can think of them as the layers that combine and create the final sound. And from here you can mute particular samples, solo them. So now it's the only second sample playing. Oh yeah, and it also has its particular keyboard assign area, so it only works for these 3 keys. You can see it here, the keyboard assign. So that's another news that you need to know, is that every sample can be spread across the keyboard in the way that you want. You can assign it to as little as just 1 key, or make it available for all the keys, all the octaves. So yeah, you can solo the sounds. Let's put it on again. You can mute them as well by clicking the mute button. You can copy those sounds as well. So for example, I would like this sound to be copied to this slot. So all I have to do is to click this icon and put it here, and then it's copied like that. So yeah, besides that, you have a volume bar next to the name and the voice link, and you can also see the volume levels being showcased here. So this indicates which samples are actually being triggered for each preset. Last thing here is the link button, which allows you to link or unlink the particular sample for the global link structure. So if you click the link button, it will enable the link option, and then you will see which parameters are participating in the global parameter control on the front panel. So these are the filter settings, the LFO settings, the VCA settings, basically most of them. If you will unlink particular sound, you can manipulate it and edit it separately from the other sounds. And if it's linked like this, the frequency change here in the filter section, or the rate change of the LFO, will influence all the other 8 sample slots. So that's important to remember when working with the sounds. So maybe let's start with this sample. Okay, this one will be cool. So okay, E3, I'm going to extend its keyboard range. And now we can focus on the actual editing and the waveform or the sample itself. So in this section here, you can see that there is a waveform visualizer where you can manipulate and edit the sample and the way that it's played back. Below there is a filter section, which is a dedicated filter for this sample, with ADSR, with envelope amount control, with LFO control, and also there is an LFO separately next to it. There is a VCA, and you even have the individual voice effects slot where you can put different effects per sound. So how do you pick a sound? How to find your samples that you can then use in Emulator? First off, there is a big browser filled with the great sounds. There is a big library filled with great sounds that we have embedded to start using the emulator. So these are the samples organized in categories. As you can see, it's it's 100 folders with different types of sounds. So maybe we can even start with a fresh preset. Okay, so here we only have one sound, and maybe we can change it to female choir and use something. Let's all right, let's pick the first one. So now, to really understand how it works, let's have a closer look at the waveform. So basically, this is the waveform visualizer where you can zoom in like this by holding and zooming in on the tab above. And here you can see the waveform in detail. You can zoom in very, very closely to set your start and end points very comfortably. You can take the starting point and set it wherever you want. And the same goes for the end point. So you can really shape the sample and change it and manipulate it the way that you want. Another major information is that you can also loop the samples. So this is pretty handy, and to do it, simply activate this looping icon here. And then once you click it, there are two markers that arrive on below the start and ending point. And once you grab them, you can select the looping area. So for example, if I select a loop area that is looking like this, I can trigger the sample. And now it will start a loop in the area where I want it to. And then you can extend it or make it smaller or bigger. So that's pretty convenient, but as the sample is looping, you probably hear the little click that comes in because the moments of the loop, the moments of the waveform, the fragments of the waveform where the loop is set are causing the click. So to avoid that, we can introduce a fade for the loop area. So now we can hear the difference. Without it, you can hear the click. If I increase it, it's much more smooth. On top of that, you can also change the pitch and semitones, detune it, for example, in cents, as well as give it a little gain boost. But that's not everything. Here there are additional options that make the sample manipulation pretty interesting. So this is the playback direction feature. So you can obviously playback your samples forward, backward as well, and if you play it backward, the loop will also the looping area will also loop the same fragment of the sample. Now let's maybe pick another sample for this presentation of this feature. A guitar would be best, maybe we'll find it here. Okay, let's try this one. Perfect. So we can boost the gain a little bit. And here again, I can show you now the playback, the backward playback. And as you can hear, it sort of creates the initial opportunity to make something else out of the sound. So this is normally, if it's played forward, it's just a little boring guitar sample, but if you play it backward, it sounds like the beginning of something cool, of something more lush. So to continue, we can go on and explore the forward playback, forward backward, and backward forward playback directions, because these come with the balance knob, which basically defines the volume ratio of the forward and playback direction. So if we set it to backward and forward, for example, and define that the backward playback will be a bit louder than the forward one, this is how it's going to sound. Instantly giving us different type of flavors, definitely in opposition to the original sound and this sample. We can also increase the release and decay times to really make it a bit more lush. Maybe we can also change the start and ending points to be a bit more precise and get more transients from the first initial trigger. Maybe we'll go an octave higher. Cool, super nice. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of the LFO here now to the VCA. Let's see. And let's see what it's going to do with a bit more of the space with the delay. And you can also change the balance of the forward playback direction to be more, to emphasize the forward more. So that is the basic manipulation. I will come back to it in a second before we'll finish to show you how to evolve this technique. But to move on and show you the rest of the structure, I mentioned the filter, LFO, VCA, and the dedicated effects slot. However, you can also define the behavior of the digital analog converters, because there are two modes here, the vintage and the modern one. So maybe let's go back to the classic sound to really hear the difference. Let's play the Marcato strings and play them with the vintage mode on. As well as with the modern one now. So basically the differences are that the vintage is a careful emulation of the original digital analog converter, and the modern one is a bit more cleaner, a bit more crisp. So basically this is the edit section. It's the same for every sound. What is important to notice is that you can also add your own samples. For example, by clicking the Add Sample button, and then you can import your own one, and you will be able to toggle between the factory and user presets in this area. So this is a perfect machine to record your own sounds, put them here, and then manipulate them the way that you want. So this is the edit section. The next section is called the assign section. So here basically you are able to assign the sound for the particular key, as well as define the area of it. So for example, let me show you a drum preset where this is pretty easy to notice. Okay, so here we have the 808 kick, and you can hear that the kick is placed on this particular note, but the range is much bigger. So basically this allows me to play the kick chromatically, changing its pitch as I'm playing, and the same goes for next sounds. So the snare, clap, and hi-hats. And that's pretty cool when you're playing drum samples and patterns such as this one. Where you can, for example, have your main kick to be on the original note, the root note, and then have additional kicks that are a bit higher, giving you some sort of a groove and different flavor. So that's how the assignment area works. Let me just go. Yeah, to the emulator. So basically this gives you a lot of flexibility, and here below you can also define the velocity range, which basically defines the velocity of your playing depending on the range of the keyboard. So you can manipulate, you can go back between the velocity and keyboard in this section. There are also controls for the velocity, keyboard, aftertouch, and left and right wheels. So basically you can assign destination parameters for velocity or the wheels. And the last section that is in the screen view is the effect section. So here you have, as I said previously by talking about the front panel, the different spatial dynamic and modulation effects, and here we can manipulate their settings and fine-tune them to fit your needs. You can also play them in parallel or in series to change the behavior of the signal chain. So that is the basic overview of the emulator structure. Now that we have a bit more time before the Q&A, I will quickly show you expand on the playback direction features and show you how to build a multi-layered sound that will change over time. So basically, we can start with sound that will be our basic sound, and this can be, for example, the guitar that we were working with before. Okay, that will be great. We can continue and do the same trick that we did before. So set the forward playback direction, manipulate the start and end points. Set the balance to backward. Increase the decay and release times. And maybe add a bit more movement. Let me just make it a bit louder. So that is the basic layer of the sound that we are creating, and we are just simply taking a guitar sample, inverting the playback direction, and also manipulating the balance of the volume between the forward and playback directions. And this gives us this pretty interesting starting point. So now we need a second layer, and for this second layer we might go for voices. So let's see which one we would like to go for. Yeah, this one's going to be perfect, the classic vibe. And here maybe we can do something different. Yeah, the looping is on. Maybe we can loop some areas and introduce the fade in between the loops, the looping. Okay, that's cool. Here we will also add a different trick, which is called the trick delay. A trick that is called the trick delay. And this basically introduces a delay after we trick the key. So if I activate it and set the trick to something like half a bar, there is a delay between my trick and the sample playback. And this, as you can imagine, helps us to define at which moment of the evolvement of the sound the particular sample arises, and therefore creating some sort of evolving feel to it. So if we play this together with the first sample, the guitar sample starts instantly, however the voice sample starts a bit later, which creates the multi-layer structure. However, we can go a bit further and fine-tune this. So for the voice sample, we want to increase the attack, so it's not so aggressive at the beginning. So it should be a bit more smooth now. We also want to add a bit of the reverb here. So let's see now. Maybe the guitar sample is a bit too loud, and this one is a bit not enough. Okay, so I'm letting it now. Alright, so that's pretty cool. We can also create additional sample that will play a different role in this sound. For this, we can maybe go for something percussive. Or maybe bassy. Let's see. A crash would be the best, or maybe a shaker. Just a second and we'll get it. This is the strings, we don't want that. Or maybe the orchestral, oh yeah, this one. Yeah, let's go for this one. Take away the looping. Set it to play from backwards. Alright, nah, this won't work. Let's go for something more similar to, yeah, crash. Okay, this one's cool. Needs to be louder. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's cool. We'll add a bit of the reverb, maybe even more delay. And here we want to unlink it because I would like to introduce some settings that will be different than for the previous sounds. Increasing the decay and release times. And here again we will use the trig delay and set it to 1 bar, which means that it will come very late in the order. Let's try with the delay. Okay, so now let's play with the other sounds. Okay, so that's the basic technique. Obviously you can evolve this and add more sounds and place them in the playback order, so you will create an evolving sound, having something else at the beginning, in the middle and at the end. So that's the basic idea and principle that you can then evolve and expand in your own musical and sonic endeavors. Lastly, there is this track that I've done with the emulator that I'll show you. So basically it consists of a few parts: bass, the voices, melodies, the percussions and the background melody. So this is just a little sketch to give you an indication of what you can do. with the emulator. So yeah, that was the original bass that was here. So yeah, we can obviously jam on that. Okay, okay, now you can hear me. All right, so the question was about more sounds, that whether we will plan to add more sounds to the original factory library. So we plan to create sound banks that you will be able to purchase, but at this point we don't plan to extend the library that is embedded in the emulator. Do you know what is the Peter Gabriel sound called? Is it included in Emulator II V? Yeah, well, as far as I know, Peter Gabriel used different samples, so emulator, but also synclavier. So I would need to know which song, and then maybe I could tell what sound was used on that particular song. Can you zoom in or get rid of the top of the interface? There is a waste of screen space. You can enter the screen mode to edit sample mapping, or that area can be... Can you zoom in or get rid of the top of the interface? Yeah, you can enter the screen mode to edit sample mapping. Yeah, let me show you this. Yeah, so we can enter the screen mode and map the samples that way, if I understood correctly. Next question. Would it be possible to demo a pad and then demonstrate the filter for us? I am interested in a low-pass filtering with some resonance to sweet spot on the pad string. Yes, of course. I think I did it before, but we can do it again. Let's find a good sound. A string sound maybe, let's see, or a pad sound. What will be the best for that? Yeah, maybe this. I'll just quickly edit the sound by changing the... maybe not this one. Let's try this one. But let's also show the classic strings. That will be the best, of course. With some envelope manipulation. Yeah, so hopefully this gives you a better impression of the filter. Let's see if there are more questions. Okay, another question. Can you zoom in to the waveform to set start and end points to 0 to avoid the click sound? Well, yes, you can, but it's not meant to be a fully fledged sample editor engine in a way that you can get more precise settings with any editor other than Emulator. But yeah, you can get very close, as you can hear. But usually when you work with the samples, you always have to find that moment where there is no click. So it takes some tweaking, but you can definitely get to a very good and satisfactory moments just by using this editor. Any Jean-Michel Jarre samples included? Well, no. I'm not sure if he used Emulator, and I'm not aware of any famous songs of his with the Emulator sounds. But there are sounds from many other famous artists, of course. Okay, last question. Advantages, disadvantages compared to CMIV. So it's quite different in the way that it sounds. The texture is different. It's a bit more lo-fi, obviously, because of the different characteristics of the hardware samplers that we were modeling. So I would say that the difference is as the difference between the original CMI and Emulator, because we emulated our instruments based on those. So if there are any differences, they are as in the hardware instruments. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So we'll be closing this session off. Thanks guys for watching. I will just add that If you would be interested in Emulator II V and other instruments that are embedded in V Collection, there is an intro offer still available for the last 2 days. It will be over in 48 hours. So if you would like to grab V Collection 8 at a good price, at a good offer, go to our website and check it out there. And I'll leave you with a little music and maybe some solo and maybe some playing. So thank you guys for watching. Wish you a happy new year once again, and good luck.